Hi, hello, and welcome back to the HII Method. My name is Jen Hatz. I am the host of the HII Method podcast and also the founder of the HII Method, a holistic, integrative, and innovative approach to assessing and optimizing human health, well-being, and performance. And I'm partnered with Neuroforce One, a human performance company that has been training champions for years. And they offer training and assessments both in their facility as well as remote options available. And I wanted to get really intimate kind of in a conversation here about what it means to really approach our mental health from a truly holistic standpoint, meaning identifying what it means to actually take care of ourselves inside and out. And that's both taking care of our internal environment as well as our external environment. And really acknowledging the fact that our state of mental health and functioning, our ability to properly assess and manage the stressors in our life and whatever those stressors may be, that there is this underlying ability for us to be able to handle these stressors. That's really what we're supposed to be doing. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. That's what we're built to do. We're built to be able to sustain through a variety of stressors and to be able to overcome those stressors. And this is what builds resilience. And this is really what survival is. And so when you hear oftentimes that we are operating in survival mode, that's exactly it. We are inundated with different stressors in a variety of ways across our external environment. So this can be physical stressors, like the physical stressor of physical activity, for instance, is a physical stressor. There are also social or psychological stressors. And I think that is where we tend to take on that much more or that much more extreme of those variety of stressors without acknowledging the fact that they are in fact stressors. And then the more that we are taking on all of these stressors in our external environment, our internal environment is what is allowing us to respond appropriately to these different external stressors. And so if our internal environment is responding in some type of way that maybe is not the way that we would prefer, if maybe we are having this adverse reaction to something, that's usually an indication that there's something going on within that dynamic, something with the external environmental stressor being maybe too much for what you're capable of handling, and or that your internal environment is not in a state to be able to handle that external stressor. So what this means to try to put this in like a very practical real life scenario. So if you can imagine that the easiest example, like I said, so physical activity is like an external stressor, very deliberate external stressor that's being placed on you in order to overcome that resistance. So if we're talking about like lifting, for instance, lifting weights. So the weight itself is a resistance that's being applied to your body. Now, anyone who lifts weights on a regular basis or on a routine basis, you know very clearly that there are days when you can lift a certain weight and it feels easy. And then maybe another time you lift that exact weight, the weight didn't change, but it feels harder. It feels more difficult. That difference in how you personally are perceiving the weight is precisely what I mean when I say that your internal environment is going to be in a place to be able to overcome that resistance or that stressor or not. And so that difference of how we take care of our internal environment so that we are able to overcome the stressors that we would like, or at least to be able to do so within a reasonable time frame. If we have a goal in mind and we want to achieve that goal, how can we best appropriate or at least properly manage the stressors that we are experiencing in a way that we're able to adapt and overcome to be able to achieve that goal that we have. So a lot of this adaptability comes from being able to first identify what are those stressors, and second, identify how is it that I'm responding to these stressors? What's going on in my internal environment? Do I actually have the tools and the resources available? Do I actually have the state of recovery and restoration available to be able to take on more? And so there's this entire web of questions that we're constantly needing to check in with and identify with and become aware of how is it that I'm responding to the things that are going on externally in my life, whether it's the deliberate stressors that we're taking on, like physical activity or work or chores, or if it's something that is maybe an overarching subliminal stressor that you might not even recognize as a stressor. And this can come in the form of your forms of entertainment as well. So if you are choosing, let's say, to try to manage your stress and try to de-stress by scrolling through a social media feed or by watching movies or doing something where you're still actively mentally stimulated in some way, you're still susceptible to whatever those stressors are that you're absorbing. You're just absorbing them from a different source. So if instead, so let's say instead of scrolling through your social media, where you're more than likely subconsciously absorbing all of the stuff that you're seeing all throughout this scrolling session that you have, you're absorbing all of that. And what you're doing with it, whether you realize it or not, you're storing it away in your memory and you're building associations with it. And more often than not, the associations you're building are in comparison. You're choosing, your brain is choosing to compare something that you know already to now something that you're seeing as you're scrolling. And more often than not, you know your own life. And so you're building a comparison between your own life and what you see in someone else's picture. This is why really just, there's a quote, comparison is the thief of joy. Phenomenal quote, because that is so true. We are constantly in a state of comparison, but that's our body's biological processing. That is your survival mechanism at play of being able to compare something that you already know and understand, trying to compare it to something else that you can build an association and try to understand it better. So if there's something that you're experiencing or something that you're witnessing, you're going to compare it automatically. Now, the more that you are in this comparison mode and you are detecting things externally outside of you and then comparing it to what you're experiencing internally, that, a lot of us can identify with this too, that starts to build this gap of where you think consciously you need to be or should be experiencing versus what you actually are experiencing and feeling and thinking. And we start to lose, whether we realize it or not, we start to lose this sense of self and our own identity and who it is that we are and what we should be doing. Really, even just that word should. Like, should we be doing this or should we not? But so all of this, I guess, circulating comparison that we're built to do, we're supposed to be doing this, but it's a bit more detrimental to us and to our ability to continue to identify ourselves, because now we're comparing ourselves to others and widening this gap of our understanding of who we are. And this, I think, is if anything, this is why comparison is the thief of joy, because now you start to lose what could actually be a true sense of just peace and rest and relaxation and being fully fulfilled right now in the moment with who you are and where you are, because you are constantly absorbing this stimuli that is triggering this comparison. So I think probably the first step that anyone can take in wanting to best identify and manage and really try to take care of your mental health is, and this is probably like the easiest first line of behavior change to ever make, is to make that change from, instead of absorbing material, in this case like social media scrolling, instead of absorbing material that is triggering comparison where you're seeing someone else's life, so instead of that, make that slight change, just a slight change, and instead absorb material, choose to follow pages and choose to look at different items that are helping you to identify ways that you can feel that much more fulfilled in who you are. So a lot of that, as catch-all is the term of like self-care or self-help or self-development, personal development, all of those kind of catch-all terms that you see for like, different bookstore categories, right? So instead though, take that concept and really utilize it and really choose to use that time when you are trying to rest and restore and get back to a feeling of peace with yourself. Choose that intentionally with the media, the social media that you are following and looking at, and with the different forms of entertainment that you are surrounding yourself with. So this can mean that instead of watching a movie that maybe is going to trigger an insecurity in you, it's going to have you in some way comparing yourself because maybe there's this big fancy house in this movie and you're like, man, I don't live in a big fancy house like that. Maybe instead of watching that movie, you instead watch something else that actually has you in a good, happy, healthy state right now, right where you are, and it doesn't trigger this comparison in you. So something that I did this time last year, actually, I made it kind of like a New Year's resolution-ish. I wanted to start reading a lot more. And I was kind of like not happy with myself that like I got out of the habit of reading, and it would be to the point where like I would start reading a book and get maybe halfway through it and then I just couldn't finish it. And so I would let that just like stay like unsettled, and I would feel disappointed in myself that I didn't finish the book. So that I wanted to change that around, and I wanted to just get in the habit of reading more and to build it into just a regular daily habit that I could feel good about and not feel like I needed to finish an entire book to feel good. I could just feel good about the fact that I read on a day-to-day basis. So first of all, the biggest thing, choosing to, on my social media feed, as I'm scrolling through like social media through Instagram, for instance, I was unfollowing pages that were just triggering me to compare myself to others. Like, I don't need to see that. It's making me upset. I don't need to see that. So instead, getting rid of those, and instead adding, for everyone that I took away, I added instead a new page to follow that made me feel that much better about this goal that I had about wanting to read more. And so the pages I started following were all of these book recommendations. And I was getting so excited. If I tell you how excited I was getting when I would see every day, I would see new book recommendations, and it would all be things that I'm like, man, I want to read about that. I want to know about that. I want to learn about that. And it like sparked in me on a day-to-day basis all of these different areas that I could now read and study and learn and grow in some way. And so it's all these different categories of books that I'm getting all these recommendations on a day-to-day basis. And so I also had, I made sure that I set up my library card for the local library system, that I knew like where my different library locations are. So that way I could, like if I need to battle with, any late fees or anything. So I actually found the one like main library that I go to has no late fees at all, which is perfect because that means I can check out as many books as I want. And if it takes me a couple more weeks than the allotted time, it's not going to, make or break me. So I'm like, I'm so excited. So I started making that a habit then of putting together this list on like a weekly basis of all of these books that I was seeing from social media scrolling, all these ideas for books that I want to read, putting a list together, sending that list to the library, like requesting books, and then going to the library every weekend to make sure that I get my requested books. And it was foolproof. The greatest, I guess, increase in my interest in this new behavior that I wanted to have. I wanted to be able to read more, and I didn't want to, first of all, have to pay for a bunch of books online. So now I never have to pay for a book, like it's all free, and I never have to pay any late fees because I managed to make sure that I go to one library where there are no late fees. And I'm reading everything that I could ever want to read because I'm actually getting that little piece of intel from these social media pages where that's all they're doing is providing book recommendations with little synopses of everything. Oh my God, it was the greatest change of behavior for me because now I went from what was last year getting stuck in these cycles of scrolling and feeling bad about myself. Like I'm not intentionally scrolling to feel bad about myself. I end up feeling bad about myself because I scrolled through something trying to escape reality and trying to relax. And I end up feeling bad about myself because in this moment of escapism, I'm comparing myself to others who are showing their, like highly edited, perfect posed pictures. And so it was such a big roadblock really in me being able to overcome that, to help promote my highest state of functioning and to really feel that much better about myself and my mental health and functioning. And so to make that switch to now, I feel so excited to just do a quick, it's literally just like I look to social media now just to get ideas on how I can help improve myself that much more. And then I'm actually spending that much more time improving myself and reading on a day-to-day basis and not having to pay for all these books because I'm getting it all from the library. It was the greatest little New Year's resolution that I made last year to make that switch. And I could not be more thrilled with how it has helped change and progress what my days look like now and how I feel about my days now. So I just wanted to share that advice out there because I think especially this time of year is when we want to make the most positive and progressive change that we could make for ourselves. But sometimes it's the fear of taking a big step, really just the fear of the unknown of taking a big step or changing something in our day-to-day routine that is like, I don't want to change anything really. I want to still do a lot of similar things. I just want to feel better doing them. So that's all it takes is just these little tiny changes, but they have to be the right changes. And you'll start to see this snowball effect. And it's I think the most rewarding feeling to then look back, especially if you look back like a year later and you're like, man, everything that I was struggling with last year or that I wasn't happy with last year, I was actually able to turn that around entirely. And I didn't have to do anything drastic. It was all these small micro changes that just snowballed into this newfound lifestyle that I have for myself. And I'm very thrilled to now say that what used to be a feeling of discontent if I started a book and didn't finish it, I used to feel so bad about myself and I would stop reading in general because I'm like, well, I didn't finish the book. And now, man, I read through books like you wouldn't believe. And if there is a book, which this happens, if there is a book that I'm reading it and I'm like, man, I can't get into this. There's something about the topic or the author or something, but it's not going. Then I don't have to finish it. I can put it down and I can pick up the next book that I wanted to check out. And it's such a freeing feeling to know that you're not ever locked into anything. You can make any choice you want at any point in time. And as long as you know that the choice you're making is to your benefit, then you're going to feel that much better about it. So hopefully that little piece of advice is helpful to anyone. So that way you can at least start to implement something on a day-to-day basis, especially going into this new year. So that way you are starting to really identify and manage and control the stressors around you and how you are responding to those stressors in a way that you really want to, that you really intend to, so that you're getting the benefit that you want to get. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.